Hello, everybody. Today, my guest is David Brzozowski, the president and CEO of Medacist. Thanks for joining me, Dave.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me on.
I'm looking forward to learning more about your company and the drug diversion analytics that it offers. On the Medacist website, I see several solutions: Genesis Analytics, RX Diversion Scorecard, Script Track Analytics, and RX Auditor, which may be the one most people are familiar with. So let's start here. Give us an overview of Medacist and what it offers.
Okay, so Medacist was born back in 1998. It's about 24 years old. It started out of the bowels of Yale New Haven Health System. I was a consultant there for about 11 years as a mainframe programmer. Okay. And it started there. They were the largest Pyxis installation on the East Coast at the time. Back in 97, 98, they had somewhere around 90 or 100 med stations at the time. Very large. And the director of pharmacy came to me and said, "Hey, Dave, I know you're writing these PC programs on the side at night, so could you come in and look at this data that we have that comes out of the Pyxis servers? Because we have a false sense of security. We have all these machines out there, and we're not finding any diversion. There's usually behavioral issues that we run into. I'm sorry, and in the past, when you have the old mechanics cabinet and the nurse manager opened it up and reconciled at the end of the shift, we sort of knew what was going on, but we have a false sense of security. Mm-hmm. So I went off and we wrote a system, an algorithm, and we looked retrospectively back at 3 months worth of data, and we found 14 nurses that were off to the races, and they were very surprised, shocked, actually. We actually found one nurse that was found clinically dead in one of the bathrooms with a morphine syringe in her leg, and they actually revived her because they went out looking for her and they found her, and hopefully she's alive today. I believe she is. So with that, it sort of was a real eye opener. I was doing it for some financial reasons to keep my kids and my newborns in Pampers and stuff at the time, and we sort of it went off from there. But that was a real eye opener.
Interesting. And it's interesting that they felt more secure with their manual system than when they brought in the Pyxis machine. But I get that. It's brand new. They need to confirm that it's working. And wow, that is a tremendous story. I have a slightly similar one, but it was all manual, but it was a hospital that didn't have any program at all. And then once we started one and started to look, it was a similar number of nurses within the first 6 months, not the first couple of days, but first 6 months that, it's like, oh, look what you've got here, because nobody's been watching.
It's an eye opener for sure.
Yeah, it is an eye opener. So you mentioned they got Pyxis. I seem to recall that RX Auditor had partnered with CareFusion, and so Pyxis customers had it. Maybe that's kind of where I got the information. Is that true? Was that ever true?
Well, so way back when, back in the day, back in I think around 99, 2000, they made me a Pyxis partner.
Okay.
So the president at the time, Steve Thomas, flew me out there, and they were getting great feedback from the customers because we had some large ones. We had Yale, we had Stanford, Sarah White out in Stanford. We had a bunch of big teaching hospitals that early adopters that adopted it early on. And he was getting some feedback, and they had C2 Safe and they had their Pyxis data system, and they just weren't having great success with it. He flew me out there, made me a partner, which was more of just a marketing partnership, where, I'd get to go to the trade shows and get exposure that way. And that was great. And then later on, back in 14, they came to me and said, "Hey, we've spent a lot of money on R&D trying to compete with you. And, you're the pioneer in this field. So we're not going to spend, $3 or $4 million a year trying to compete with you. an R&D, we're going to just join up with you and resell your stuff.
Okay.
Resell RX Auditor as we sign up new customers on the new platforms as we move forward. And so that was all the way through 2018, and then the reseller agreement came to an end at that point. So 15 through the end of 18. So
Okay.
actually into
All right.
19 as I look at it, into 2019. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's where I got that information from. So do you work with other ADM vendors then? It's not just Pyxis.
So in the past, we worked with Omnicell, but we had some legal issues there, and we sort of, it fell apart. So most of our sales are direct, and not through a vendor. But we're agnostic in the fact that we work across all vendors, including Cerner, MedSelect, MedDispense, Pyxis, Omnicell,
Okay.
and Acudose now that's being redone by Omnicell.
Okay. So, but the facility comes directly to you, not through one of the ADM
Right.
companies. Okay, perfect. All right. Now, on your website, these other products that are mentioned, do they kind of get all bundled with the RX Auditor, or are they completely separate things? Your Genesis Analytics, RX Diversion Scorecard, what are those things?
Yeah. So let me go through them quickly. The RX Auditor was born at Yale, and that's where it started. And that was more of a PDF. So what we looked at back then is we were an ASP or a Sas provider back before the name was even coined or the term was ever coined. So that was back in '98. We saw that the healthcare professionals don't have a lot of time to look at these reports, right? And they don't have a lot of time to dig into the data. So we were running it for them, pushing it to them.
Dave, let me just ask you, for those that don't know, what's a SaaS provider?
Oh, SaaS is a software as a service,
Okay.
right? Or they used to call it prior to that application support, ASP, application service provider rather, much like an ISP, an internet service provider. It's where you do all the work and then you push the actionable information to the user. And that's what we found is, back then as well as now, there's not a lot of time in healthcare. So we were running our algorithms, pushing the data in a PDF hyperlink format to them on a secure website. They'd be able to download it, look at it, be able to, actively look through the report, see what their issues are, their risk is. And we did everything not only from diversion, but we also did clinical reporting, economic reporting, and operational reporting on the automated dispensing cabinets. So from that, we then saw that there was a need. A lot of customers like to delve and pull information as well. So you tell them what's going on through the trending reports on a monthly basis. But then they wanted what I called an on-demand system. So there was an RX Auditor on demand came out next, where they could go in and build their own ad hoc reports, schedule them, produce them, sort of look back at any amount of time, produce the same reports that we had in our monthly PDFs, or produce their own custom tailored ad hoc report. And so that was called on demand. That came out next. From that, we spun off RX Auditor 360, which was back in '08. We saw the need to match the dispense to the administration early on, and we actually prototyped it back in '05, and we commercially made it available in '08, where it matched your dispenses to your administration, show you where the discrepancies are, show you the lag in lead time from dispense to administration, and allow you to have supervision or monitoring over that on a monthly basis. After that, we came out with a product called RX Auditor CPA, which is Central Pharmacy Automation, which CPA stands for. And that's looking at, back then the McKesson robot, the packaging, being able to take the packaging and watch it or watch the flow of it to the distributed machines, the med stations up on the floor, Also the carousels. So we worked with a couple of carousel vendors and was able to do the same thing there, where you track the product from when it comes into the central pharmacy, it gets packaged, it gets scanned, barcoded, and sent up to the floor to be loaded or refilled into the machine. So we were trying to close the whole loop on that medication use process, from the time it gets in the door to the time it gets in the central pharmacy and then up to the floor. Then the 360 took it from the time it got out of the cabinet to the time it got scanned or documented as given in the administration system. Your Epic, Cerners, Siemens, all those. So those were those suite of products, and we'll call those our legacy products. Okay. So then back in late 17 or early 18, we saw the need to take it to the next level. So we built something called RX Auditor Investigate. Okay, and Investigate sits on a new platform that we built, which is called Genesis. Okay. So Genesis is I call it a knowledge base. So all this data we gathered over 2,000 hospitals, and both their EHR and their ADS data, we have a lot of metadata that's built on actual diversion events and the behavioral patterns of those diversion events over all that time from various hospitals across the country. So all those different diversion patterns are important because that helps you build those machine learning algorithms. And that's what we've done, is built those to be very sophisticated. So when new data is streaming in to our system, it can identify those patterns much faster. And then also build on those, because we have built into our Genesis platform an automatic feedback loop. So in our Investigate product, we grab feedback from the user in what type of activity was found, what the behavior of the person was, what was the predominant factor for the determination of a diversion event. So that's sort of it's this big engine, Genesis is built on this knowledge base, right, that we use to our advantage, right? Because nobody else has 24 years worth of data, right? Thousands of hospitals like we do. So it's a powerful piece.
Right. When you say that it takes into consideration, they give the feedback about the behaviors, do they literally put in things like, multiple breaks or irritable behavior or that kind of thing?
Yeah. So okay. There's a series of questions related to behavior, related to attendance, all those different attributes. We actually pulled a lot of our cool. Large IDNs to get a list of things that they look for, right? And so Investigate is a user portal that's built for the diversion task force in a hospital or a health system, because there's many different different areas that get involved, right? You have your pharmacy, of course, you have nursing, but you might have security, you might have risk management. All these different disciplines come in, and they're able to not only see the cases as they're built. So what we do is we take the statistics we generated years ago through our algorithm and the knowledge base we have, we meld those together. So it uses general statistics where we abstract data. We compare like users. So we always want to compare ER nurses to ER nurses. We want to compare all the morphines, never, not looking at just one strength or one dose type, but all of them. So we do all that abstraction. We get all the statistical information. We find those people that are outliers. And then we take that list, which, let's say in a typical large hospital, teaching hospital, or any size hospital that's large, you might have anywhere between 80 and 120 people on a list potentially. And we whittle that down. We're finding about a 70 to 75% curation rate, because what we're able to do with Genesis and that knowledge base is further curate that list based on weighting different components, right? Different measurements. So you could look at diversion, particular drugs, but then it could also be transaction usage. It could be, waste activity. It could be dispense to administration activity where there's a lot of discrepancies. And there's many more factors. We have we have a team that actually does this diversion analysis for our customers, where they walk through and they audit for the customers. So based on that knowledge over the years, we have a series of rule sets that we built that help us weight these identifications that we find. And that rule set's applied in the background. So all this auditing that the customer used to have to do on those 120 outliers that we found is done in code now in the background. And it curates that list down to, like I said, about a 70 or 75% reduction. So
Great.
now you have a condensed list, and then we rank that risk based on those weighted measurements for either at the health system level or the regional level. If it's a large health system, they have different regions or business units, down to the facility level, and then to the patient care area. So if you're a nurse manager, you can log in and see your patient care area and your risk. Or if you're the head of a large health system, 80 or 100 hospitals, you can look at that level and see where your risk is, and then drill into those areas where the risk is more prevalent, right, based on our determinations. So that's what Investigate does. It curates that list, does the auditing for them, and then gives them this portal where they can communicate and collaborate, right? So you could talk to the risk management team and set a case, and then actually each member votes on whether they think it's an actual potential diversion event or not. And eventually somebody closes the case as being an actual diversion event or not an actual diversion event. And that's all documented. You could attach documentation to it. You can make notes in it and commentary. And you have all the dashboard functions, right? So you can look at all the different levels of different metrics that you may need to look at across. I'd have to demo to you to show you all the functions of it, but it's a one-stop shop that gives you everything you need. Everything's self-contained and secured, so it's all there for you. And it's memorialized because it's there for as long as you're in the system, right?
Yeah. What part of the controlled substance pathway does it pick up? Does it look at wholesaler and then all the way to waste, or just when it enters the hospital and while it's there?
So it'll take in wholesaler information. We've also we got several integrations. Wholesaler, we have obviously the main feed is the ADS data. We have EHR. We have time and attendance. We found very powerful measurement as well. So if somebody's on not scheduled, or should be on vacation, or they clock in early, or they leave and clock out, but there's still activity. So it identifies a lot of that type of stuff. We've also brought in access control. We could bring in, like if you have a med room, we could show the entry of the
badges,
med room.
badging in.
Yeah, badging in and out. And also we're working on bringing in video surveillance, because a lot of hospitals are using video in the different corridors. So you could actually, identify a person going into a room and things like that. So it's pretty cool stuff.
Okay. All right. And then waste, do you have anything on the waste end?
Yeah, we're working with a company specifically for waste. We work with obviously the dispense to administration. So we do a complete balance sheet from when it gets dispensed, and if it's a waste on removal versus a waste on the administration side, where they document it as being waste or a return. So there's a whole balance sheet function. But then we are working with another company, which I can't tell you whom, but that also looks at like looking at the liquid, right? Looking at the
Assaying what is there.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, great. Yeah, so comprehensive. All right, that's cool. There's a lot of products on the market now. It sounds like you are the pioneer, the oldest one. I didn't realize that you'd been around that long.
Yeah.
What would you say sets your software apart from the others?
So everybody, everybody out there, right around when the opioid crisis hit, everybody who did analytics said, "Oh, I could jump in here and do this as well," right? And they have been, and there's quite a few that popped up, right? But I think the largest differentiator is what I talked about earlier, that Genesis knowledge platform. Nobody has that. Nobody could build it. If you started 6 or 7 years ago, one of my competitors, you have 6 or 7 years worth of data. The more data you have, the more sophisticated the machine learning algorithms become, right? And the better you can identify problems. So we actually have not only those patterns, but we have confirmed outcomes of events, right? That customers over the years said, yes, these are the actual diversion events that happen. So not only is it a pattern that we're learning, but it's actually confirmed as a diversion event. So it's a higher weighting of that, right? Over
Nice
time.
feedback loop. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's the biggest differentiator. The other differentiator I would say is a lot, or a couple of them anyways, tout the fact that, the dispense to the administration, right? That's the key indicator to them, right? That if there's a discrepancy between the dispense and administration, well, my whole system was built on just ADS data originally, right? And there's many things you could see there. And there was never integration of EHR that matched that type of thing. So my point is that although they tout that that's the key indicator, a lot of these systems you can't even bring their system in unless you have EHR data, right? You can't even, they don't even have an algorithm that it has to be based on that matching process. And I think that's where they fall short, is because there's a lot of things that are identified, and we've identified them for the last, let's say, 15 years, that was just based on ADS. Until we started in 2008, we started integrating EHR to make it more powerful. It does make it more powerful. If you find discrepancies, obviously, but think about it, if you're into diversion and you're a nurse and you want to divert, you're going to document your head off, right, on the other side to make sure, right? So that whole premise is the dispense to administration is one that's, I think, a little faulty.
If only it were that easy.
That's right. Yep.
That's the low-hanging fruit that you find when you first start and bring in something because people know nobody's looking. But yeah, after a while, it's yeah, you're right. Yep. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. What would you say to a hospital administrator that has no diversion monitoring program in place and they don't really think they need one?
Yeah, well, I'd say that you may have some blinders on. So drug diversion has been out there forever, right? It's like if we went back, like when I started here on this conversation, talked about that tackle box or that that mechanics cabinet that the nurse manager had. I mean, it was happening then. It was happening before then. It's happened in retail pharmacy, right? People have social issues or issues of their own and personal issues, and sometimes that's a crutch for them, right? It's been going on forever. I'll tell you one quick story that when I grew up here in Connecticut, in a small town called Cheshire, there was my neighbor, my buddy's father was vice president of sales for Purdue Pharma, which is in Stamford, Connecticut here, and he drove me down to meet the CEO and the vice president of, or the president of Purdue Pharma back then, and they were very interested in my product back in, I think it was 99 or 2000 when he brought me over there, but they weren't interested in it so much as to what I was doing and the good things we were doing for society and finding these problems and identifying things. They're more interested in the distribution of their meds and other meds like theirs into what hospital and who's buying what based on the utilization patterns that we had in our database. So I found that very interesting. I soon walked away and said, oh my God, you know, and then you fast forward to today
Yeah.
and all these lawsuits and all these things that went on.
Yeah.
So it's been happening forever.
Yeah.
That's my point. And nobody is you know, quick one is if you're a small rural hospital or a large urban campus, we find the same things across all of those, you know, and everywhere in between.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Very true. Well, thank you very much for spending this time with me, David. I have not used your product before, but it sounds fascinating. And with the amount of time that you've been doing this, I'm sure you do have a really good database of information that is so important, because the more you learn, the more you know what to look for, and it gives you those markers. So that's
we'd
great.
love to demo it to you sometime.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. Definitely. All right. Thank you very much, Dave.
I appreciate it. Thank you.